Next up, we have Bruce Gordon from EcoFlight. So we're sticking with the flying theme, except this will no longer be birds, but airplanes. And Bruce will, again, take us through what his observations, but also kind of impact is through his work at EcoFlight. He's both founder and executive director of EcoFlight.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, keeping with the birds theme, it's really great that the birds help people understand about climate change. What we bring to conservation is the bird's eye view. We are a small conservation group with a huge mission, and our mission is to educate and to advocate for the environment, and we use small planes to do that. We fly political decision makers, media representatives, and concerned citizens, and we bring that aerial perspective which essentially gives the land a voice. And our mission, the way we see it, is to inspire people to learn more about these things that they see and educate themselves and then advocate, speak out about that. And that could be either way, you know, both sides of the aisle, both sides of the issue, but we really hope to inspire them to make a difference and have their voices heard. This is one of our original pilots that flew a long time ago and took this picture. It's, Bonnie Dunbar from the Space Shuttle, and she gives you the whole picture. This is what it's all about. And as we said, that aerial perspective and the climate change, I'm just going to touch on some of the issues we work on, but it's very visible from the air, flying around the world, around the country, from Africa, and mostly right now these days in the Rocky Mountains in our home. There's 7 billion stories out there, and this is just one small one, but conservation flying is the theme. Many, many years ago, actually in this valley, a gentleman lent a plane to a guy named Michael Stewart, and he used the plane to help work on issues outside of the Grand Canyon. And the Grand Canyon was under the threat of a big coal-fired power plant on the Kaparowitz Plateau. And all of a sudden, conservation flying was born, and we started to understand that the airplane could be an incredible tool for conservation. And it's utilized abundantly now, if I may say. At least I fly almost every day these days, and everything I see always contributes to the conversation. And I'll talk about the latest flight we had just Sunday down on the Animas River and the mining spill near the end of this quick presentation. But to take a look at these pictures, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and then when you're up in the airplane and you have a captive audience and you're speaking to people, they are paying attention, believe me. As I said, we're a small conservation group, and with my wife Jane as the co-pilot, we fly a myriad of issues, and one of the first issues that we flew, or I flew many, many years ago, was this plume down by the Bisbee Douglas power plant. And it may just look like an innocuous plume, and some of the NBC TV guys that I was with saying, well, what's the big deal? Smoke. Well, I actually flew them into the plume, and they started coughing, and I really got their attention. But this plume is not just a plume of smoke down in Arizona. The southerly winds, all of a sudden we found out that over here in Gothic, right in our own backyard over here in Crested Butte, and there was acid rain which was being deposited from some of these copper smelters. So the big debate and big discussions were had, and there's a lot more of conservation to these copper mines right now. And this continues as we go up into the Four Corners areas, the Four Corners power plant, where there's enormous visual effects of the smog and the coal and the carbons, et cetera, that you've been talking about on your weekend here, your week. And the Navajo folks are right in this area, and enormous amounts of problems, health problems, are associated with this. It's not just a smudge on the landscape as far as visually, but it really has some very dire health consequences. This is one of the real spiritual areas, Shiprock, and you can hardly see that when you fly into Farmington, New Mexico. And this is plumes from the Four Corners power plant that's very evident from the air. So, you know, the idea is that with these aerial educational tours, we're taking up the politicians and press, taking a vast array of photos that are seen around the world, and all of a sudden people are seeing areas that they wouldn't ordinarily see, and they're saying, well, what are the consequences of this? And they're saying, well, what do we need to know about this? What do we need to do about this? And again, it's my hope that they will really educate themselves and then speak out what's going on here. These are mines in Nevada, and for many years now, we've been flying people from Alaska, Native Alaskans down here, because there's a big proposed mine up by the Pebble mine in Alaska, southeast Alaska, which is going to really impact the salmon fisheries. It's a huge issue, so the people who are coming to see what a real mine would look like. And these are all those trucks that you may see at the bottom. They're almost as big as small houses. It's an enormous, gigantic enterprise. And this is outside of Elko, Nevada. And these are the blasting and the soot and all the other concerns that you have. I've got an awful lot to talk about, but I'm just going to try to keep it in mining. And these are the after effects that you see from the mining operations. And these mines are on private lands. These clear cuts are on private lands a lot of times, or even when they're on public lands, they're areas that you would not see from the road. So for many years, one of the issues that was very important to us was when we're dealing with the spotted owl, all these clear cuts that were going on in the Pacific Northwest. You would not see these kinds of issues or the impacts except from the air. And these are a place just recently I was up in a place called the Sealy Swan Valley, where the effects of the clear cutting are still being seen, but because of lots of our flights and some terrific work by conservation organizations like the Nature Conservancy and Trust for Public Land, they are taking over some of the Plum Creek and clear cut areas and turning them into conservation areas. This is up what they call the crown of the continent, which is up near Kalispell and Glacier. Some of the most magic areas, and it's not one of our better photos, we have a lot more on our web, but these mountains are the Mission Mountains and the Swam, as wild as any mountain range you've ever seen. Really terrific, terrific country and landscape. Our flights also take us down in the winter on pollutions that happen on some of the great reefs, and this is the second biggest barrier reef in the world down in Belize, where a lot of harmful pesticides are happening, and a lot of other conservation consequences are happening because of non-regulated resource extraction that's going on. Some of the most pristine forests in the world are found down there, right at the corner of Guatemala and Belize and Honduras. And as I say, we fly all kinds of people, and these are village elders right outside of a town called Toledo. And because of a lot of our flights, they are now doing some ecotourism because they really are trying to protect the forest there. And one of the village leaders, the guy that looks like he's about to get sick and maybe jump out the door, he looked out there and he said, you know, I never realized that these forests ended. I mean, the perspective that some people have or don't have is astounding. And again, education is the key. The airplane has been one of the great tools lately to be able to educate people and say, well, this is what's going on, and you may not see it, but it's right in your backyard sometimes. Or it's up in the Tatshenshini River where the glaciers are, or it's up in Greenland where the glaciers are and receding. On a recent flight with the Washington Post, they're doing a big article on climate change, which we were really pleased to help out with, and the Grinnell Glacier. I mean, I have photos many years ago, and this glacier is drastically receding. Lots of concerns and problems, you know, right across the board, as they were talking about icebergs calving off. I mean, these glaciers are really, this is in the heart of Glacier Park, and is one of the few glaciers that we really felt that we could photograph and bring back some proof, because most of them have receded so much, it's hard to even tell. Technology has changed from the days you used to fly. Now this is like my office up there, but some things haven't changed down in Belize, where, you know, there's our bottled water, and one of the inspectors going, what's this? Never heard of such a thing back in the day. So it's, you know, things are changing, but the airplane is continuing to make a great impact, and the people that we fly, we work with across the board, the conservationists and the people who fund these nonprofit organizations are really the heroes of this. We consider ourselves the Environmental Air Force, and so we work very closely with organizations like the Audubon and other places. And some of our work down in Belize, quick story, was when they released an animal called the harpy eagle with a 10-foot wingspan, and they put a little monitor on it, and we would track it from the air. This is an area called the Rocky Mountain Front, one of the last pristine areas we have in the lower 48, right down below the Canadian border. And oil and gas incursions were really a problem up there, and there was a big controversy. We flew everybody under the sun, politicians, ranchers, farmers, and it's a great coalition of diverse communities that we're able to fly, and the conversations in the cockpit are really quite astounding, and that information is now being disseminated on our website and through other means of modern technology, such as tweeting and Facebooking, which I'm learning about. But the tour was incredible, because here's this pristine area, and if you go up just a little ways up into Canada, you see all these roads networking, which really fragments the habitat for the grizzly bear, one of the great species up there. And oil and gas, this is up in the Bakken. And this is a very quick presentation. I really urge you to visit our website at ecoflight.org for some real in-depth information and links to some of the great issues that are confronting us. But this is the flaring going on in the Bakken and the oil and gas development that's going on, and all those lights are flares. You can see them from outer space these days, or you can see them up close and personal, flying low and slow down in Chaco Canyon, which is threatened by these guys. Right in our own backyard, and I don't know how many folks are from Colorado, but the Roan Plateau just across the ridge from us is a magnificent area that has been threatened, and a lot of work's been done on it, but you can also see a lot of resource extraction has occurred. And these wells go all the way up to Yellowstone Park. It's nonstop, and again, EcoFlight is, we use oil and gas a lot, as you can imagine. And our statement is always, we are not against oil and gas drilling, but we feel very strongly that it can and must be done properly, and there are certain places that it just shouldn't be done. I just came back from a flight, it seems like this morning, but I guess it was yesterday morning, over the Jack Morrow Dunes outside of the Red Desert, the longest migration path in the lower 48 for the mule deer and the pronghorn, really being fragmented and changed. All these wonderful areas, whether it's the near Canyonlands and Indian Creek, are being threatened right now, right by the confluence of the Green and Colorado River, all being threatened by a big proliferation of resource extraction, whether it's tar sands, oil and gas, potash. It's all kinds of things are happening, and people need to be alert and aware, and that's where we come in. We are trying to make people aware of what's going on. And then, of course, hoping to inspire them to educate and advocate for what they believe in. This is a really great recent flight with 10 tribes got together outside of Canyonlands, because one of the ways to protect this area is to get ahead of it and maybe make a monument, maybe legislate. But this is the Bears Ears, a really wonderful hiking and a very big spiritual area for the Navajos, where everyone got together and all the tribes were in a total agreement on trying to protect some of their beautiful lands. We talked about water a lot, and John McBride was up here talking about development water. His son Peter and I flew down to follow the Colorado River all the way to the mouth. Peter paddled it, actually. It was an incredible educational experience, because he got terrific information out about a river that goes all the way from outside here in Colorado and literally ends down by the Sea of Cortez, where you have to walk and the boats are, there. And because of Peter's effort and other great organizations, there was a flow last year where they pulsed water from Lake Mead, and all of a sudden had some chances that there might be one of the great hunting and fishing areas might be resurrected a little bit south of our border. Just a couple of other slides in the last couple of minutes I have. This is red dust. All of a sudden, we as skiers here up in Aspen are really affected by this. All the disturbances in Utah from all the extractive industries, climate change with all the big winds, the heat, the drought. These are our mountains right outside here by Snowmass Mountain, and this is red dust from Utah that comes out here. And it gets layered in up here, and it really increases the speed of the snow melt, and the snowpack diminishes dramatically. Not to mention it screws up the spring skiing, which is something. This is an iconic photograph that Janie took, which really heralded a whole change and was really, for me, proof positive that climate change existed. This is the white bark pine. Here in Colorado, we have the spruce beetle that's killed a lot of our trees, one species. But the white bark, it only grows over 8,000 feet. Never before has there been an outbreak. Well, because of this photo, scientists looked at this and they really wondered what was going on. And they ended up getting us to fly over the whole ecosystem. And because of a lot of our work, the grizzly bear, which is a prime source of food, is the seeds of this tree, and it was going to be taken off the endangered species list, but all of a sudden, because of our work and a lot of organizations, it was not. Fire is again really a terrible thing that's happening out west because of climate. So we all have to be aware. We're doing our best to fly politicians like Salazar and our good governor. And just the other day with this big mine spill, I'm just going to go another minute over my time because I want to talk about this mine spill with Senator Bennett. But you know, one of the programs that EcoFlight also does, thanks to John Denver and his love of the land. And I've flown him into these little strips, you know, actually on a road we've landed him. We have a young adults program, so we're also dealing with what we consider the future, because we fly all these politicians and people like Senator Bennett, we love them, but for the most part, they are politicians, and they need to hear very loud and strong from the youth and the people that are coming up today what we need to do for our environment, for our climate. And whether it's solar or turbines or whatever, we keep flying for the future. But I just threw these slides in right at the end because many of you heard about the Animas River and the collapse of some of the mining up there outside of Silverton. And so, you know, we respond as quickly as we can. We are really dedicated to this mission. And so Senator Bennett called me up and organized, got Cory Gardner to go over, and the EPA and everybody else, and we took a big flight over the mine sites and brought back some of these images that are being published in The Guardian and the New York Times. And this is the mine itself where it's leaking out, and it's coming right down through these areas of the Animas and Durango. And that's Janie flying, and I'm the co-pilot, and I think I said, you got the plane, and she said, I got the plane, and we both had the plane. But it's been really exciting. You know, please call on us if we can help you in some of the work that you're doing. We can be reached on our website, ecoflight.org, and I invite you to visit our gallery, which is one of the most extensive aerial photos you'll ever see of the United States and other places in the world. And thanks for listening.